Welcome to the Scaling Japan podcast, a podcast about how to grow your business from $100,000 and beyond in the land of the rising sun.
Welcome to the Scaling Japan podcast. I am your host, Tyson, and on today's show, we have Arisa Chelsea Ueno on the podcast. Arisa has a solid background in the new business generation and e-commerce space, not only in Japan, but all over the world. She was actually the first employee for Shopify Japan and cultivated a new ecosystem of e-commerce and activated thousands of domestic and cross-border businesses. Since 2019, she has been engaging companies as an independent consultant to support tech startups and new business generation. She has done lectures and taught classes for startup programs at Vantum Design Institute on the topic of e-commerce. Since 2021, she has been working as a global investment analyst at Plug and Play Tech Center, based in Silicon Valley, California. So glad to have you on the episode today.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very excited to be on this podcast. Thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited to have Arisa because she was the first employee of Shopify Japan. But also I've heard a lot of good things from many people that when it comes to e-commerce, she is the lady to go to. And she really knows her stuff. So I'm really excited, and I've been looking forward to this chat for 5 weeks now. And the reason I chose the topic of e-commerce, D2C as well, is I think it's something that a lot of foreigners would like to do in Japan, but it's pretty hard to do. And I've had quite a few people reach out for this specific topic. But just to give kind of an introduction, what is like some of the differences between e-commerce versus doing retail in person?
I guess like retail is a very broad definition, including e-commerce, but also having the actual retail shop. That means like retail businesses. And it also means that like the person who sells something doesn't mean they produce the product. So that can be the fashion store, that can be the pharmacy, anything. Person just distribute to consumers. But when it comes to e-commerce, definitely that's okay. E means like, oh yeah, online. So whenever you buy and sell, that's e-commerce. So Amazon, Uber Eats, e-commerce. But there are two different things. One is D2C, direct to consumer, and second one is marketplace. So when it comes to the e-commerce, especially the Japanese context, you will hear a lot of like terms D2C and marketplace.
What do you think are some of the benefits of doing e-commerce?
I would say like for long term, it's really great investment, even though it takes a little bit initial cost. But when it comes to the actual physical businesses, a lot of people and businesses faced a very hard situation during the COVID-19 situation. They had to shut down. But then e-commerce, it's been going well. And so any kind of weather or those like pandemic situation, e-commerce is still there. And once you can get direction or with like good marketing, you can also like reach to like the people wherever they are. So that means even if you're in Japan or even out of Japan or whatever, you can sell to anyone. You can buy anything from anywhere. So that's the biggest thing about e-commerce.
Yeah, and in our case, I think COVID made running an English language school physically quite a big challenge, and COVID really pushed us to move online as well. And one of the cool things that we figured out kind of moving forward is now that our service is online, we have people all over Japan taking our lessons. And if we were to make a physical school in another city, right now we mainly focus on Tokyo, we would actually know which place has the highest concentration of students. So if we were to build the next location, we actually have all the data of like where in Japan people are at. And so the launch of a physical location would actually be way more successful based on our e-commerce or Might be a little bit different, but just providing lessons online.
Yeah. So I guess like after pandemic, a lot of things changed, but some of them are actually changed in a positive way. So when it comes to the e-commerce, it was very interesting moment that I actually got reached by the one specific bar, which I really liked from Kabukicho in Shinjuku, very small bar, because they had to shut down the store and then they trying to build online store for their, specific drink. I kind of like a little bit like helped out. Nobody expected like I will get the message from the specific bar in the Kabukicho and like, wow. So we have to also pay attention to the positive aspect of what pandemic gave us.
And you can get access to like really high quality stuff or really interesting goods that you never had the chance to. So I think
Yes.
that's what I really like about that. I think for the challenges, I think they're pretty obvious. I can kind of skip that. So I guess like in the US, if you were to sell, like you would probably use Amazon, Big Commerce maybe, or Shopify. But what are some of the channels used in Japan typically?
When it comes to a little bit small like businesses, especially the D2C, and when people are not making profit from selling something yet, in that case, a lot of people choosing between base or store.jp or Shopify these days. Especially for the base and store.jp, it doesn't cost any money to start off. People have to just pay once they actually sell something. So yeah, it's really easier for anyone to start off. So that's really common. But other one is a Squarespace, Wix, Workplace as well.
One of the big reasons I really wanted to speak to you on D2C and e-commerce is really understand the differences between maybe how someone would do it maybe in America or Europe versus Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But based on your experience, like what are the differences in the website creation?
The one thing I can definitely say is like being simple website sometimes doesn't work in Japan. For example, when it comes to the website design of Starbucks or Uniqlo, definitely they use a different design for Japanese audience and like non-Japanese, like usual, English-speaking Western countries audience. And some Japanese people love a lot of information. So when you go to Rakuten Ichiba, Rakuten marketplace in Japanese, for the Japanese market, you see a lot of messy information, but that's sometimes we can call that's a design for specific Japanese audience.
Gotcha. Yeah, in the West, I think we call it a minimalist design. For the people listening to the podcast, minimalism is a popular design style for websites on the West. So I actually help some of my clients with website designs as well. And through my research studying Japanese ones, I think a good way to study, to be honest, is if you get Facebook ads in Japanese and they look like they're from a professional company, click on it. One unique thing I saw is usually in a minimalist, you'll only mention one thing one time, and maybe you'll mention one thing two times at most. But in a lot of Japanese ones, especially like fitness or like services, businesses, to consumers, not to business, it'll be the same thing just said in different ways, like 3 times. And like if you check up a site like Rise Up, which is a really famous fitness company,
Oh yes.
like or like Torais or Rise Up or Torais is an English one, you're like, wow, this is so long. But
Yeah.
instead of having like 2 call to actions, they might actually have like 8 to 10 call to actions.
Yeah, so we say LP, that means like landing page. So once someone click the link and then that goes to the really long pages. And then like you said, like you will see a call to action button like so many times. But I can say it's one of the traditional e-commerce business website.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I think the other one is, I think they use a lot more JPEGs in Japan, like they pre-design Like a lot of the
Yeah.
websites, it's actually instead of elements or modules, they save
Yeah.
JPEGs and
Yeah, so that's why sometimes the font is so different from actual font they're using in the text and also the font on the image.
also I think the other difference is I think the price comparisons or like the plan comparisons. I
Hmm.
think how they organize it is different.
Hmm.
More space in Western design, but it's
Hmm.
very like squished together in Japanese design.
Yes, a lot of information all together. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty knowledgeable about the website end, but I'm actually curious, like, what are the differences like in the photos and videos used?
These days, actually, the videos, I mean, you see a lot of videos everywhere right now. But when it comes to the e-commerce, especially D2C businesses, yeah, you will see a lot of videos, advertisement, like a lot too. Also because, for example, when it comes to Shopify, they got integrated with Instagram and YouTube and TikTok directly. So that's also makes everyone easier to use video for their e-commerce businesses, and especially to show the product, like 360-degree.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And how about for maybe the copywriting end?
Yes, copywriting, it's also very different when it comes to like English copywriting and Japanese. For example, I also had to deal with a translation, but at the same time combined with a copywriting aspect when we trying to launch a Shopify website for Japanese audience. Even say a company want to mention, oh, we are the number one company or we are the best product, blah, blah, blah. But we cannot like advertise one company or one product in that way in Japanese. It's too arrogant. Like it's, not great. We have to be a little bit humble. We don't sell, we are number one. No, we should put some Japanese context in that term. So it's very complex.
That makes sense. I've never seen anyone say they're number one. I've seen people they use like I think it's Japan Consumer Awards. I forgot what they sometimes use like badges from other
Mm,
people,
yeah.
like best.
Yeah.
Not, but it's not from them. It's someone else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very true. Like, it's also often common to see like, oh, okay, 90% people choose this company or choose this product,
Yes.
or in terms of the ranking, we are the top. And yeah, with using the third-party information, like it's more, I don't know, confident for the company to advertise themselves. But that never ever they say like we're number one, best product ever. Yeah, so I guess that's a very different thing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Scaling Japan. In addition to serving as your fine host, I also provide advisory and coaching services to business owners who want to 2x, 5x, and even 10x their business. So stop holding your company and your team and your employees back, and let me help you and your company scale. Find more information at scalingyourcompany.com. Now back to the episode. No, that's really interesting. And are there any other points in copywriting where you receive something from maybe headquarters, but you have to change it for the localization?
I guess it's not maybe numbers, maybe not only just the copywriting, but more for the translation, like digitally translation, but because our katakana, hiragana, those Japanese letters sometimes hankaku, zenkaku, that means like double space or just single space. But in alphabet, that's only just single space. So it's very hard for the non-Japanese developer understanding how they understand the word and word without having spaces or different like usage of the space. It was very hard to communicate and make everything understood by entire team. Also, yes, numbers, like how we count the numbers are also different. If we just put the numbers, it's okay. But when it comes to the, okay, 100,000 USD
Like,
or currency,
gotcha.
or wow, that's like we need a different way to show. And
That makes sense because you were to say like Juman Doru or
yeah,
100,000, but
yeah,
they'll be like,
yeah.
There's only a 10."
Yes, yes, yes. That's very hard. And
Oh,
then like, oh, how we use, if the sentence is too long, then like we have to okay, when we put the space or when we put this like another line, and if it's too short, oh, the balance doesn't look good, blah blah blah.
they're going with the balanced view of, let's say, I guess the
Yeah, that's
West.
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on spacing? Like, I can't remember, but I did check out like
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks Japan and Starbucks US.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but there's like a slight difference in spacing. Like, it was like a
Mm.
centimeter difference. Like, this whole section was the same. It was just this like 1 centimeter difference in spacing. I can't
Yeah.
remember why, but do you
I
have any thoughts on spacing?
It's about like hankaku, zenkaku. I think it should be in English like single space and double space. When we use numbers, we also have different numbers. Hankaku number and then zenkaku numbers. It's a very different spacing. This can be a little bit like not general topic when it comes to we only use English, then like, oh, we never pay attention to the spacing, the size, and but we have different type of space actually.
Do you have any other tips on conversion rate optimization? And for the listeners, all that means is how to increase the conversion rate of your website. I'll give you some time to think about it, but in my case, at least in the
Mm,
language space, some other ones are like I help some fitness gyms as well. It's
mm,
having the number
mm,
that's locked to the top. So like having the
mm.
phone number in Japan is really important.
Yeah.
So I found that has a really big impact. And the other one is usually most companies would be like obsessed with putting discounts. So I think that's
Uh,
fine, but just putting a small like locked banner at the bottom, even on
yeah.
mobile, and they can just click here to contact us, or here's the phone number, contact us. Just
Mm.
having that thing at the bottom, I've noticed like a 1% increase in conversion rate in some cases.
Yeah, when it comes to the Japanese audience, like we use the concept of holding hands step by step. That really means that customer support, like generally speaking, the expectation from the Japanese audience is too much, like a little bit high. And so when it comes to the advertisement, we have to really prepare everything for them, while like other countries sometimes like do it yourself, and it's more, like gives them like more freedom. But Japanese people sometimes prefer to be say mention you should do this rather than they just like have plenty of option to choose from. So I think that's also one thing can affect to the conversion rate as well.
I think one other one advice I sometimes give is "Kigarui ni renraku kudasai." If I had to translate to English, it would just be please feel free to contact us, and like
Yeah,
don't
no,
restrain, don't feel like you're causing us
yeah.
inconvenience. Feel free.
Yeah, Japanese people like sometimes tend to read the air or atmosphere. So like we have to show that like we really open for any type of question. That kind of attitude really makes them feel, okay, I'm gonna contact you. So yeah, like just one sentence, but like it really sometimes makes difference. Yeah, you're right.
And I think if the competitors like they have a hyper optimized site, but it's actually kind of unfriendly, and people go to your site, but it's much more welcoming and friendly, I think
Mm.
it gives you an advantage in some cases for people who just kind of give up on those other companies.
Mm. Yeah, one thing I can also add is even though the company think, oh, we translate the website in Japanese, so that's okay. Also, it goes to the copywriting or maybe the actual correctness of Japanese language gives a very different atmosphere of the website. So it's very obvious for me to see, okay, this company just used not great translation of English languages, and then like, oh, that's very obvious that like they're not Japanese company. Okay, if it's not native language, if it's sometimes hard, and Japanese language really looking for the perfection of the language. So people sometimes very strict about the language. Yeah.
And I actually want to ask you, like, I've seen some foreigners create D2C sites in Japan where either the photos of Japanese people are too stocky or they use too many Western people. Do you have any
Oh,
tips on like photos of
yeah.
people?
When it comes to, okay, like non-Japanese company using the more Asian looking photo, yes, that totally makes sense because they want to look like more Japanese friendly, like company. And actually also Shopify did a lot of localization and changing images and everything. It's very interesting. Sometimes Japanese company trying to use more Western people for their image because they want to, oh, we are more open, we are more American or Silicon Valley type of a really technology company, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to look like Japanese too much. So
Gotcha.
that's very interesting contrast.
Do you have any tips for using pictures of foreigners?
I definitely will say it should be more actual people. I mean, it's very obvious that, oh, you took this image from the stock, like image stock services. And it's very obvious and really typical, okay, person from those like services. Sometimes, no, not great. So even just like asking your friend or people, I feel like, oh, okay, they're actually did this. Yeah, it's kind of hard, but definitely having the Japanese people's perspective all the time and getting the feedback really helps.
No, I think that's really good feedback. Just doing it and actually asking Japanese people,
Yeah. What
who
do you
are
think
your
of
target
it?
audience?
Yeah.
So I think we talk a little bit about conversion rate, how to get up the conversion rate, but I think we can think a little bit more big picture now. Yeah, because I mean, you have a lot of experience in this, but what do you think are the key components of an e-commerce market entry launch to Japan?
When it comes to the research, the information we can find in English and also we can find in Japanese, definitely different. So even though you see, okay, like we found this information in English, sometimes it's not really perfect. So again, having a person who can search or research in Japanese language, and that's really important, I would say. And that can be also the partnership with a Japanese company. Also very important, even if they speak Japanese, but it doesn't mean that like it's really perfectly fit to your product or your industry.
People find this funny, but I actually advise Japanese companies
Oh,
on how to improve their website
oh,
targeting
okay.
Japanese consumers.
Wow.
I've interviewed countrymen, but that's actually one of the biggest common mistakes is they assume that just because a person is Japanese, they understand what all Japanese people think.
Yeah. That's also very different, like language capability and actual knowledge or understanding of the market. It's very different. So I would say having someone like you actually spend some time in Japan and living, like just knowing a lot of people in the daily life, I think it will be very powerful. And especially because you also know that outside of Japan and inside of Japan, and then you can compare between. That's also a great perspective as well.
By the time this episode has come out, actually, I think the episode before this one, we interviewed a market researcher. And
Okay.
that's all they do is market research. And you can learn more about market research and why it's important with Andrew Edsall. And we also did an episode with Timothy Connors where he talked about product market Japan fit,
Interesting.
where you may have product market fit in your home country, but that doesn't guarantee it's a fit for Japan. So you have to find new product market fit for the Japanese market.
it also goes to the localization. Yes, like having the core value, but still sometimes like we have to customize to adjust and to fit, the Japanese market. Even though like when we say Japanese market, as you mentioned, it's also a very different story when it comes to, okay, Tokyo or outside of Tokyo, age, generations, gender, and the type of the company they work for. So if that person or agency or partnership or you are trying to hire, if those people can explain little tiny differences between those things, that person can be really someone we can trust. I definitely also want to mention about the importance of the choosing the right channel or even platforms, because this is also not only just like people trying to enter Japanese market, but like Japanese company really struggle when it comes to the e-commerce businesses, because they already build some businesses running and making some certain profit on the specific platforms. That sometimes makes them very difficult to move to another new platforms, for example, Shopify. But depending on the platform, the capability and the flexibility and the scalability are very different. People sometimes don't realize that. So I would suggest that using the platforms which are really friendly to multilingual environment and multi-cultural aspect, multinational markets, having the specific platform for only Japanese market, for me, sometimes, okay, makes sense. For example, marketplaces, yes. But when it comes to D2C platforms, definitely I will recommend Shopify, not because I just used to work for them, but because I understand how they're flexible to have the stores for different markets in Japan, APAC, other Asian market, Europe, US, even Africa.
Have you ever found yourself having trouble creating a business plan? Do you pretty much operate on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, creating confusion and chaos in your organization? If that sounds like you, I recommend you join my Entrepreneur Bootcamp. In my bootcamp, you'll set an achievable but challenging revenue target for the current or following fiscal year, and we will create a business plan to make it a reality. See more in the show notes below. And now back to our episode. And actually, I know there's a marketplace, but do they have templates that were designed for the Japanese market rather than just using the same ones for the overseas?
Yes, there are some templates that's called theme. They created the template that people can use that in Japanese. But I understand that there are many Japanese third-party partners who are trying to build or customize Shopify for the only Japanese market. So yeah, it's there's so many things happening right now.
I think the better Shopify does, the more themes and things are built for it. And I think the other one I would say for it, I guess people to understand about maybe the marketing end is Yahoo search is pretty much non-existent in the West. Bing search is non-existent in the West and Japan. Based on my experiences of doing SEO for companies in Japan, I would say it depends if you're in Osaka or Kanto. There's a little bit of regional differences, but I think Google is like 70% and Yahoo is like 30%. And Yahoo search is pretty much it's the same thing as Google search. So if you rank on Google, you're pretty much going to have like plus or minus 2 in your rank on Yahoo. So if you do Google SEO optimization, it will get you on Yahoo. If you do a pretty good amount of sales, and I would consider actually doing Yahoo listing ads, or let's say like Google AdWords, but for Yahoo.
Yeah, like Yahoo Japan is very, very unique. They only run the businesses for the Japanese market, but it's very strong and they do a lot of different kind of businesses now. So a lot of people who just came to Japan for the first time and very surprised that what Yahoo does like this in Japan. Literally, they do everything here. I personally really like to see the Yahoo real-time search. That's called Yahoo real-time kensaku in Japanese. But literally, if you put any keyword, even English, Japanese, whatever, but it just comes as who is tweeting about that term and who is writing the article about that, and you can search, but only from the Yahoo search engine, and that's really interesting to see. And you can combine the same thing from the Google and also the Yahoo.
Just so you can have a bigger picture of the market.
Yeah, from both aspects.
And I think the other one, I'm not sure if this applies to Japanese people, but I've done Facebook ads in Japan and in the US, and I find that the cost per impression in the US is usually double for the same level of engagement because it's so much more competitive. And so I found that sometimes I was paying a half, sometimes even like 40% of the cost per impression with the same level of engagement.
When it comes to the Facebook users, I guess like these days, younger generation, I mean, not only in Japan, but I can definitely say the unique aspect of Facebook Japan is like people using Facebook almost like LinkedIn. Yeah. This is also because like Facebook launched the businesses way before the LinkedIn Japan, did the launch in Japan. The former country manager of Facebook Japan used to work for Yahoo Japan again. He is expert.
It all goes back to Yahoo.
Yeah. So many companies actually, are related to Yahoo Japan, even though it doesn't look like it. But it's very strong. And Facebook is still very active. Maybe not the teenagers, but still if the people are like late 20s and 30, 40, 50, yes, it's very, very active here.
Yeah, I would definitely target for Facebook. And if I was targeting like teenagers, I'll say up until 25, I would probably be targeting Instagram.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've had interviewed staff and like I've interviewed Japanese staff and like do you use Facebook? Do you use Facebook? And I found that I think anyone now under 26, like I think under 25 is definitely no, but if it's 25 to 29, that's still kind of like the most likely not range.
Yeah.
Unless they have foreigner friends who they use it to contact with.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have any other tips for foreigners who like to do e-commerce in Japan?
If people are never been to Japan, but trying to launch the business in Japan, I really recommend to come to Japan once and then to see how people are like handling the language capability in English or versus Japanese. And also, how the thing are running businesses, everything. I don't think there are many companies think in this way, but I was told that when the Hong Kong or Singapore, those people are using English perfectly, why do we have to like translate the website into Japanese language? Why? And I was like very surprised, like, well, and I even had to convince or explain why Japanese people need Japanese language. And then it was very interesting moment. So when it comes to the Asian market, but still Korea, China, Japan, of course, it's very different. Explaining the differences among the countries takes a lot of time, especially when the people never been to eastern part of the world. Trying to maybe absorb the information using some keyword in Japanese, even though you don't understand the language, but maybe trying to use the Google Translate, to trying to figure out what kind of information or web design actually exists on the internet. And then Rakuten Ichiba, Rakuten Marketplace, it's really good start to see the website design.
And kind of my thoughts for Japan market is either you go big or you don't go at all. If you're arguing about localization, then probably Japan's not the market, because if you want to go
Yeah,
big,
yeah,
localization is a key part of it.
yeah,
And
yeah. Initial cost, I think it's a long-term investment, because translating the website in Japanese means that the company have to keep hiring the people like who can capable of Japanese language, customer support and website update, everything like needs to be done by the person who understands Japanese. So I think that's a big decision and big investment, but it's still the good size of the market.
I think in pretty much chatbots, like, doesn't really have much penetration here, right? I'm not too familiar with it, but do you know if like chatbots have as much penetration here versus overseas?
Well, I would say definitely if the generation is younger, or startup field, it's more common to see those like chatbot or more e-commerce or IT or technology and everything. But generally speaking, yes, penetration rate of e-commerce in Japan is still not that high, surprisingly, even though people feel or have the image, oh, Japan is like technology and robotic country, but the reality is still very sometimes low when it comes to the countryside of Japan. Definitely, I guess understanding the market with statistics numbers, but also maybe actually experiencing the country by their eyes, and like it's very meaningful.
And I guess my last question would be, do you have any tips on doing campaigns or point systems?
Japanese company or people love loyalty point, but it should be like functional. Like I don't think, even though like, oh, it comes with a point, it doesn't mean that like a company can attract the many people. So it should be like logical way to attract, even without the points, maybe the gift card or discount card, or maybe introducing somebody, and that kind of incentive structure can work. So I guess that part can be also utilized. Many things from like a Western market, especially like a US market, can be applied in the Japanese market as well, because sometimes the Japanese e-commerce platforms are not really made for that kind of campaign. Personally, I don't like point, but when it comes to Rakuten Point, it's a totally different story. People live with that. That's an entire new ecosystem.
Gotcha. Do you know if it's possible to connect your e-commerce business maybe with Rakuten Point without being on their platform, or any other points?
When it comes to Shopify, they actually have integration with Rakuten Marketplace, or people can sell on Rakuten using Shopify
Ooh,
store.
interesting.
Yeah, that's a very unique
That's
integration.
huge.
Very huge, yeah. So I guess like having this system for the people to earn their Rakuten point, that can be very strong aspect. Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad I asked that, because I've heard it's not actually that easy to get on Rakuten compared to like Amazon. So if Shopify can do it, that's amazing.
Our team have worked so hard to do localization, and like it took a lot of time and years, a lot of efforts. But I really, like respect and very my team, and like we did a great job, I guess.
Otsukare-sama, and in return for all the hard work, even for Shopify and I guess the e-commerce, do you have any requests, asks, and where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. So I love social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, if you love Facebook. I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram, especially. So just feel free to send me any message or request just to connect. I'm currently based in Europe, but I'm actually moving to US and then trying to explore more other markets. So personally, I would love to share what I'm everyday life like seeing and thinking and like as a perspective of Japanese person, and it will be interesting. So yeah.
We'll definitely link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arisa.
Yeah, thank you for having me.